Hi, I hope we are live. Um, Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where you are around the world, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm Sigrid Dyekjær. I'm a producer from Denmark and mostly known for the film The Cave that was Oscar nominated last year and won 2 Emmys. This year I produced a film called Love Child, which is also running for an Academy, but I was just so thrilled and happy that Leo asked me to do a Q&A with him on this fantastic film. I'm really happy to be here. Our Time Machine is an amazing film. I'm a huge fan. Um, Leo, you've done a really visual and strong film. You're a strong storyteller with a language that is definitely international. You are connecting me as a Dane um, with your character from China and your story, which is really a Chinese story in many ways. So thank you so much for that. A little introduction to Leo, if you guys don't know of him or has seen any of his films prior. He's a filmmaker based in San Francisco and Taipei. And your most recent film, Our Time Machine, has played at over 75 film festivals worldwide. You've been winning a lot of awards with this film, 12 awards, I think. And currently, I think you were nominated for the Gotham Awards. You have directed 2 episodes of the landmark 5 part PBS series in the US called Asian Americans, which is nominated for an IDA award this year. It's been a busy year for you, Leo. Your previous films is including the Emmy Award nominated film A Village called Versailles, and you've been a Sundance Time Warner Fellow, a Rockwood Just Films Fellow, and a co-chair of New Day Films. You're also the co-founder of A-Doc and a documentary branch member at the Academy. So thank you so much for inviting me and helping you to talk about your film.
Thank you
I
so much,
just
Secret. Yeah, very
I,
very happy that you can do this.
no problem. So I'm sitting in Copenhagen and you're sitting somewhere in the US. Actually, I don't know
No, I'm in
precisely.
Taipei
Oh, you
actually.
are in Taipei. Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
So
No,
we have
Taiwan
Taipei.
is a much better place to be this year, I think, or the last 12 months than the US at the moment. So
Yeah. So you
unfortunately.
you chose to stay there. Good good for you. Our Time Machine, which I saw at the Academy screening room, I was extremely moved by it. It's a personal film. It's a character we follow throughout the film, and we'll talk much more about that. But I laughed, I cried, and I got into a very thoughtful space. Not having seen my own elderly family members in this COVID time, your film has such a huge relevance for all of us, especially because we're all locked up and many of us have actually difficulties seeing our elderly family members. In the beginning of the film you have 3 signs, and I just wanted to read them up because I thought they were so beautiful in how you actually make us as an audience enter into your film. uh, One of the signs is we all have our time machines, don't we? Those that take us back are memories, and those that carry us forward are dreams. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of having signs in the beginning of a film, but I just think that the 3 signs you put really sets a tone, and it really connects us with the core of your film in a very precise way. So thank you for doing that, even though it's not like a natural way of entering into that kind of documentary film. I wanted to start off by asking you. You know, it's a film about the Chinese artist Malion, and he takes us on a journey where he builds a time machine because he finds out that his father has dementia, and he somehow wants to capture his father before his father disappears. And I know you're 2 directors on the film, but maybe you could start off by telling us, you know, how did you find this story and how did you find this character, and how did you start this journey on this film?
So my film partner Young was actually the person that first met Ma Liang. Ma Liang was at the very beginning of creating his puppet performance, Papa's Time Machine, which is central to the film. And he, like most people who do this kind of work, was thinking about maybe making a behind the scene short little video to capture the process. So through a friend, he reached out to Sun Yang, Yang, my film partner. And when Liang shared the story of the swimming pool story, which again, it's a pivotal scene in our film, Young was very moved by the story, both by the visuals and also by the emotion and by this relationship that um, drove this piece of work into being. And he felt like there was more to this video they was making than just a behind the scenes short 10-minute video, and he wanted to pursue a longer piece. But he was also very young at the time. He had just finished film school not long ago. So he started going around the documentary circuit and start to pitch the project at pitching forums. And I actually met him here in Taipei in 2015 when he pitched at the CNEX Chinese Documentary Forum. Both me and also our executive producer, Jean Chen, who's a fabulous editor, um, uh, were basically we saw his pitch and saw his 3-minute trailer, and we were both so moved that we came up to him at the same time and offered to help him.
Mm.
That he was looking for folks to with more experience to collaborate with, and initially I actually signed on as a producer, but it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that this film needed somebody who, with a 40-something-year-old perspective. Him being in his mid-20s, there's a whole section of the story that he probably didn't really relate to the way that I do. Amanda and I are actually about the same age.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we
I
all,
was wondering. You must be the same age as your main character.
yeah. So we decided that it would be better for the project if we just share the producing directing duties, and 3 years later we finished the film and we premiered at Tribeca in
Great.
2019. Yeah.
So, what was it about your main character that was connecting with you when you saw that pilot that he had been doing, or sizzle that he had been doing? What was it that drew you to the film?
It was a weird experience because I felt like, even though it was a documentary about somebody else, I felt like I was watching an autobiography in some ways. I felt like I knew exactly what Marianne was going through. I knew this panic and fear that he must have been experiencing, both getting to a point where you start to watch your parents age, but also as an artist, mid-career, looking around and wondering, if this is all there is, and what's next, and am I really making an impact or making a difference in this world, like I thought I would, and he thought he was. So all those things, just it was just such a visceral experience that I never it really didn't never really felt so strongly that I wanted to be a part of this project.
So, did you actually continue to shoot once that you were on board on the film, or were you done with all the shootings, or how did you plan sort of the production of the film?
Yeah, we were actually pretty early on. I mean, he started shooting in the spring of 2015, and when we partnered up, it was the fall of 2015, and we shot until 2018. So we knew that there was going to be two strands that we would be focusing on, right? We were going to follow the production of the stage performance, and then we are going to follow the family as the father's condition deteriorates, and see how the family reacts to the aging and the decline, if you will, of
Yeah.
the patriarch. Um, and it took a certain amount of leap of faith, in which I know you're very familiar with, just to trust that if you follow the subjects long enough, something interesting will happen.
Not
Uh,
always. Not
Not
always.
always, not always, not always, absolutely.
I wish
And
it
then,
was so easy, Leo, that we could just follow a character forever and then the whole film started making itself. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. But
Yeah, no, actually, about a year into it, we were really worried that we might not have enough material to make a feature-length doc. I mean, because we had all these really fantastic shots of the puppets and being made and the props being designed, but we also know that we cannot sustain a whole feature-length film just
mm,
on the beautiful visuals alone. I mean, people will get bored of it, no matter how wonderful it is, right?
mm,
People get desensitized to it. So
exactly.
they had to have the personal stories to really grab onto the audience and take them along for the ride. So and we didn't know what was going to happen to Ma Liang's father. We didn't know what was going to happen to Ma Liang. We just kind of kept going, and then there were some surprises that happened that actually ended up to be really wonderful addition to the story. So
And
yeah,
did you then start financing the film at the same time as you were shooting, or because sometimes when I hear films being pitched about, so it's about a play, and then everybody's like, play? We don't want to follow a play. I mean, we're doing a film. Is that interesting? So I was curious. Did you find financiers that would sort of embark on that road, or were you sort of forced to keep on doing it until you sort of had the bigger story and the bigger perspective on his trip?
we got some support early on, and they came at the right times. It wasn't enough to pay ourselves. We were certainly
Yeah,
not living off of it, but we got great support from first from China, and then Catapult Film Fund in San Francisco supported us. Sundance supported us. Those are small grants,
mm,
but they were enough for us to kind of keep shooting. And then our largest piece of financing came in when we were in post production from ITVS.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it was, I feel like it's pretty much the trajectory that I am usually on. I don't know, I feel like the European models are very different. We end up getting most of our money from the US.
yeah. So maybe you're
Uh,
more used to it in that sense.
yeah. I'm definitely more used to that model, but it's far from ideal.
Yeah, of
Um,
course, of course. I love the scene when Maleon, he's running out of money, and he doesn't know how to, he can't continue building his art for the art piece and for the play. So sort of stops the project because he needs to go out and find money. And I couldn't help laughing a little bit, thinking about the filmmakers, because probably the filmmakers feel like this as well. But I was also wondering, were you ever nervous that he was not going to continue to do his play, or that his project wouldn't succeed? What was that important for you, or was it not that important?
well, I think we wanted his projects to succeed, but we didn't know. But we knew that he, one way or another, he was going to make something out of it.
Yeah, no matter whether you didn't find the money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it might have not have sort of a big audience, or it might have not been the scale that ended up being. But he had the puppets, he had ideas. He was already making these really beautiful shadow puppetry, short little images that he was gonna stitch it together somehow. But
Hmm.
we didn't know how people were going to receive it, and when the logistical stuff kind of, eventually the fundraising, and there were some tensions with the financier, and uh, it really got in the way of them finishing the project properly.
Yeah,
But they were, they still came up with a beautiful piece of work that really moved a lot of people. I just wish that it would have been more commercially successful. I think that they're still trying to push it out, but it had a few limited runs in China, but it did not
now with
do.
COVID, it's even like more difficult to get out with this type of
Yeah.
piece, or play. It's sort of stuck.
Yeah, and also I think internationally it's also trickier because it is a very expensive piece to put on. I mean, it's there's two puppeteers per puppet.
Yeah.
there's musicians and the big sets and whatnot. So those are still pieces that they're still till this day are trying to figure out how to take the next step with
That's
it.
why it was so beautiful that you have made a film about it, because I mean, even I don't get to see it from Copenhagen. Maybe the play will never get to Copenhagen. It's still, and I'm sure the play is really beautiful if I got to see it. But what I really loved about it was the time that you actually take in the film for us. I mean, really to pay attention to how he makes these dolls and how these dolls become alive and how they actually seem alive, even though you see the puppeteers in the image together with the puppet. It's still extremely lively. Is that a Chinese, like, I know it's a Chinese tradition with the puppets, but um, what was that sort of a main story you also wanted to dive into, since the father was this theater director? Was that sort of played out from the beginning, that you also wanted to take us on that understanding of Chinese theater and Chinese puppeteering?
Yeah, and Manel definitely decided to do this piece as a theater piece. I mean, he really doesn't understand theater very well. I mean, he grew up in an environment where there's a lot of theater, right? His father is a well-known picking up a theater director. His mom's actually a really well-known actress. So
Oh,
he grew up
yeah,
in a stage family, and initially he wanted to do this as a stage performance because he thought that he would design it and his father would actually direct it.
yeah,
um, and since his father pretty quickly, it was obvious that the father was not going to be able to do it. He then took on this role as a director. But yeah, it was very much based on what he was exposed to as a child. But he's also an artist that's been influenced by work from around the world, from art history, from animation, puppetry from around the world. So the result, the final piece is actually very much of a fusion piece. It
yeah.
is, a lot of it is Chinese, but actually a bunch of people mentioned that some of his puppetry and some of his animation, well, the puppet art is steampunk, right? The style is very steampunk, and then animation apparently, um, people kept saying, "Oh, it reminds us of Eastern European, like Hungarian animation." So yeah, it was sort of a little bit of everything.
Which I think
But
was really nice. I mean, it had this sort of like more modern style to it, because it was a mix of art, and that's why he has his tradition and he has his culture. He sort of steps out of that and takes it into a new level. And I think I wouldn't have been as interested if I knew, if okay, you're gonna watch a film about Chinese puppeteering. I mean, I definitely was drawn to it because he was so modern and he was combining so many arts elements together. Just
yeah,
watching him build that machine was just like, I could continue to watch. Like, I even felt like, oh, maybe we can also build something from trash we have in the garage, or he was so inspiring with how he was using, when you were in his workspace and you could see all the elements he was playing with. I thought that was just super fantastic.
well, I mean, you mentioned that I always feel like the film that we ended up making is actually an extension of the play that he made,
Hmm.
because it's really at the core of it is about the same father-son story. And I
Yeah.
think in many ways, the story that we told was the story that he wanted to tell through his play. And in many ways, it was because he is such an experienced theater artist that he didn't realize that you don't necessarily need to do this really meticulous details for prop that's supposed to be seen on stage. But
Yeah.
because he did go through the obsessive compulsive trouble
Exactly.
of making these really fantastic details, we were able to use our camera and capture that for the screen. Because I think if we were just shooting a play in general, that, like you're mentioning earlier, I mean, we would have seen sort of all the roughness of props
Yeah.
that is never meant to be seen with a close-up camera. So
Yeah.
so
But
so he
how you
he
did
made
that
those
very
props for
quickly.
us.
Yeah, and I loved how you took that very serious. You know, you really took us through his art pieces. And I think no matter what, I hope the world will open up again. So at least his time machine art piece can travel and be exhibited, because it was just so clever and so creative and so beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, those puppets are amazing. And you talked about the puppeteers. It's really interesting to observe the interaction between the puppets and the audience, because I mean, there's two grown women standing behind the boy puppet, right, Makuji, and one of them is voicing for the puppet. But every single person that we saw, no matter in China or in the U.S. or wherever we went, nobody looks up at the
Exactly.
puppeteers.
No,
People are
exactly.
fixated. Yeah,
But
people and
so they draw their attention.
yeah, and then they're interacting with the puppet like it's a real boy, and that's actually was something that for us was really important, that we wanted the especially the boy puppet to be a real character in the film. That
Yeah.
we didn't want to have people think, oh, that's a puppet. And
Mm.
we actually had to make some hard decisions, because we followed the puppeteers home and we did interviews with them, we shot scenes with them. We chose not to use any of that in order to preserve the magic of the puppets.
Oh wow, great.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good idea, because the puppets sort of stayed in that universe, and they became magical to us because they were kept in that universe. Did you ever think about what would happen if the father died while you were doing the film? Were you ever afraid that you couldn't have him with you throughout the film and watching the play?
We thought about that. It did cross our mind, and we didn't necessarily have a plan B. I think that we were just going to move
The
forward. And
documentary God was with you, I think.
yeah, I think it, whatever happened to dad, it was going to impact Ma Liang's life. We did initially conceive the film as a two character story, to have the father and the son more equal weight. It ended up to be focusing on the son. So uh, yeah, it was something that we it definitely crossed our mind. It wasn't something that we would like to think about, talked about very much. But I think that for us, we just figure that whatever it is, the family story will continue, and it will be, it would say something about this particular family. It would say something about how the son deals with the growing older of the whole family, including himself, how the son deals with death and life and memory and time and mortality and all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
which was so beautiful. I mean, I really think you captured well. I don't know if it was like that when you shot it, or you have edited it that way so that it actually works for me. But I think we can definitely feel the difference between when he remembers more things, the dad, and then towards the end where he sort of gets in more and more into his shell, and doesn't really recognize or remember as many things. And I think that was really just very beautifully shot with a lot of respect as well, because that's quite painful. I mean, for the father, did he sort of know that he was part of a film? Did he completely understand that this was a documentary film about his son and him and their relationship, and him being more and more dement? Or weren't you able to sort of talk with him about it?
uh, he knew that we were following the family, and he knew that he had this condition that we're capturing, because we went to the hospital with him every time. And actually, the funny thing is, oftentimes we will be the one with him at the hospital, and not Ma Liang. It'll be us
Okay.
and mom and dad, and Ma Liang, might be off on a
Okay.
business trip somewhere. So he was very much aware. I think for him, he enjoyed having us around. Because in some ways, I think one of his biggest fear was that he was going to lose his legacy, that people are not going to care about his work anymore. And
Okay.
but here we are, to him, a younger generation of artists, of storytellers, trying to capture his story. So you know, he was actually quite thrilled about that. But at the same time, there were moments and there were scenes where we felt like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um that scene of him
Felt
not.
like you sort of knew to keep the respect. I thought that was very beautifully done. It didn't feel like it was too much, or you were in places you shouldn't be. As for an audience, you can sometimes feel that,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
does it
yeah.
become too private and when is it actually part of the story?
Right, right, right. The scene of him not remembering the play after he's seen the play, it was something that really, it unsettled us when we watched the footage.
Yeah,
That's Young's voice, behind the camera, because he shot the bulk of the film, and in that instance, he was there with Dad by himself.
yeah.
So they had this conversation. We watched it. We were really not sure how to use it right, because we felt like we might, was there
Yeah, you
enough consent? Like,
feel it.
yeah, there were
Yeah.
some ethical things that made us, raise some questions, and we knew we had to be really careful about how we use it, and we had to respect, that yes, this is what happened, but it
Mm.
needs to be organic, be truthful to his story the way we used it.
But
So,
I
and
felt
it's a
it was
very
very
powerful moment.
important. But I felt it was a very important moment because, I mean, in those kind of moments, the film sort of becomes. I start my own film. Like my brain and my body and my heart starts having my own film going. With my family members and elderly family members, and I start to think about family members of my own. So I think it was done so elegantly, and so you could feel that this was a a special moment that you had been caring about how to actually use. That was very sure you could feel that. But I'm really happy you decided to put it in, because that's a moment where the film lifts itself to a bigger space for the audience. So I'm really happy you put it in, even though it must have been quite painful to put it
Well,
in.
we knew we knew, I mean, like you're saying, that it was a pivotal moment in the story, and it had to be a pivotal moment in the film. And
Yeah.
till this day, every time we show the film, you could really hear the audience gasp, when that moment comes out. I mean, in some
I
ways,
even asked at the Academy screening room, just on my TV, my
right,
big
right,
TV
right.
though. But I did stop breathing and thinking, oh my God, this is painful. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But thank you for leaving it in. I think you also, because that's a moment where we can feel that it's actually not about the play. It's really a film about a son trying to capture his father, and trying to figure out who his father is through going through this art piece, this play. He will discover new dimensions of his father. So in a way, it I was happy it was there, because then it actually wasn't just a film about a play.
Yeah, I know I'm very proud of, um, the fact that I think the relationship that we capture really transcends the language and the culture, and I think that it's very universal and it's very resonant. I think all of us, you know, especially all of us who are at the age where we're seeing our parents, get older, like we can relate. It speaks to us in the deepest
Yeah,
level. Um,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. When you
yeah.
were shooting those visuals, like the art pieces and the dolls and the doll building and all that, was that sort of something you invented along the way, or did you have sort of an art direction uh, board that you knew we need elements of this and we need elements of that, or how did you discuss that with your co-director and cinematographer?
Well, we knew, actually, I think we overshot that. We shot a lot of that stuff,
Yeah.
because everything is fascinating, and everything is beautiful and magical. But we actually, I feel like we made a lot of decision in post-production, because we needed to focus on a couple elements to represent certain stages of the building process for the play, right? Like we had decided that, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to build the props first, then we're going to
Mhm.
build the doll, and then to represent the difficulty of building the puppets, we're going to focus on the hand, and
Yeah.
then after the puppet is built, we're going to show the shadow puppetry first before we see real rehearsals. So we started to take all of the footage that we had and wrote rules for ourselves, right? Make logic into the building of the play, and knowing that because it's so complex, that we had to try to find ways to build in some shorthand so people understood what the different stages were. So we didn't necessarily have ideas, but we did have ideas of doing these, basically the puppets acting out Ma Liang's memories. We
Yes.
actually shot 4 or 5 different memories. I mean, what mostly ended up was the swimming pool story, but we had other pieces that we shot that we didn't end up using. But I mean, like, I feel like that's
With those elements, you could do a short. I'm sure that there's like material enough in the puppets material that could be interesting. I mean,
it probably
felt
could
like
be interesting, but you know how it is, that because we actually we shot these memories as real scenes, but puppets acting out those scenes may not necessarily work played out in real time. I think that the sort of the more stylized treatment that we ended up giving it made it work. If we really sort of had it play out like a real story beat, it may not have worked at all. But we do have a bunch of other really interesting stuff that I wish can find a way to use.
I'm at least very happy that you did spend time in the film to actually allow us to understand that, because I mean, for my tradition, we have Hans Christian Andersen and some plays and some ballet, but we don't have any tradition like this Chinese puppeteer tradition. So it was really an incredible experience to see it in the film. um I think normally, what I appreciated as well in your film was that you might have thought that you were going to do a portrait film about Maleon, but as you say, it's really a film about the family and the family story. But was it your co-director, was it his vision to do sort of a portrait about him, or and then you discovered this other story, or how did you plan that out?
Um, I don't think we ever wanted to do a traditional artist portrait. We
Mhm.
knew from the very beginning that it's the father-son story that we were interested in. We didn't necessarily know what aspect of it and how we would tell this father-son story, and we didn't know that it was going to end up to be really. I mean, it's really about um, sort of living your life and
Mhm.
embracing the imperfections of life, really, right? It's at the beginning, you've got Ma Liang really trying to reverse time, if you will. He's trying to collaborate with his father so he can stop the time from moving forward, from causing more damage, right, to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his father. But he ends up embracing the beauty of this, of aging, of this element that a lot of people might see as horrible. He found a way to find beauty in it. I mean, I think that was a surprise that we were going to tell that story. It was a surprise that it was really, at the very end, it's more about how Ma Liang sees the world differently, you know.
Yeah, and how he deals with losing his father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those things were new, but we knew at the beginning that it was always going to be a father-son story.
Yeah. And what about the editing? I mean, do you work with the same editor that you have worked with previously? And did both of you sort of have the same idea, or what were the elements in the editing you were struggling with the most? It
Um,
seems like such a balanced film now that we see it, but I know that's not how it works when you sit in the editing room.
there are a few things actually. One, funny enough, was the building the relationship between Ma Liang and Tianyi, his wife. The courtship, it kind of popped out. It surprised them. We didn't know that it was happening, and then by the time that they were together, we're like, oh no, we didn't. capture the the growing or the building of the relationship. So we had to find creative ways to make that work. So that was one. um
But you
we
did
also
make it work, I think, with maybe
I
very few scenes, but at least it did work.
Yeah, no, that actually, I feel like I learned that was a lesson that I walk away with from making this film, was that we didn't really need that much to make it work. We had just really, when it's all said and done, maybe one scene and maybe four shots to kind of get them to the
And
stage where they're
some
engaged.
music helped you probably as well, or
I'm
you know,
sorry.
some music helps as
Some
well.
music helped. Some music absolutely
Set the
helped.
tone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it did end up in one of our musical montages that there were a couple of them in the film. So, um, and then the other moment that we really struggle with was right around the premiere of the performance, that when the performance opens, because that's kind of the moment where Madang is in the darkest place. That he, even
Yeah.
though this piece of work that he worked so hard has now gone out to the world and met the audience, he was very uncertain about what's going to happen now that
Mm.
the play is going to be over. So we had multiple versions of that, and we couldn't get it quite right, and we didn't know how much of the play to put into the film either. you
Yeah.
know
No, that's
Sometimes it
difficult.
felt like, yeah,
Yeah.
people kept saying, there's got to be more, and we try to do more, but then it breaks up the rhythm and it's not right. And then now I feel like now people still want to see more, but I rather for them to see some and want to see more, rather than show too much and have it interrupt the rhythm of the storytelling.
Well,
So
definitely. I mean, keep the audience wanting more. That's always sort of the balance we are all trying to to find when we make these type of films. And I think you're right. If there's too much of the play, we would also be like, yeah, but let's get on with the daddy, or
yeah,
we want to know what's
right.
going on in the relationship. So I think that's you can always keep on working on that, but I think you found, at least for my personal taste, you found a good level, a good balance of what I actually needed to see in order to understand it. And it was nice, in the theater play, that you also sometimes move into the scenes. So we're not sitting out with the audience. We are actually also sometimes allowed in, quite close, because there is a camera. So in that sense, it's not a complete theater experience for us to watch those elements.
Yeah. No, we were lucky that we were, they allow us to shoot some of the rehearsals. That's why we were able to bring in the cranes and really get
Yeah,
inside the scene, which would have not been possible if we only shot the
exactly.
public performances. So I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe that's revealing too much for the audience who thinks that everything takes place in the one
I think
one
it's
performance.
still a
So,
feast to watch it. It's still a feast to watch it. Just visually a feast, and the way the camera moves is with so much curiosity and no predictions. Like, I don't even know what's coming next when you start filming the art pieces and the dolls, and his whole universe is just so thrilling and inspiring and full of energy. So I think audiences should come and watch it. Yeah, we didn't spoil anything. At least I hope not. So was it difficult to shoot? I mean, China, I know it's a tough place to shoot, and I produced a film at some point called Ai Weiwei: The Fake Case, where we shot Ai Weiwei, the Chinese artist in China, and we had a lot of difficulties with the security wanting to get our cameras and our material and things like that. So I was, of course, wondering, is it was it difficult to shoot with him, or was it such a personal story that the Chinese government doesn't care about this, or because they do care about journalists or filmmakers filming in China? So were you in a better space here?
yeah, and I think because I was such a controversial figure, I think that the government had their eyes on him probably. Um, Manan's work is not quite the same has the same political aspect as somebody like Ai Weiwei. So we didn't have a lot of problem for the production. we did run into some issues with in post-production because we wanted to release this film in China since in many ways is very does not have the sensitivity that some other documentary films may have, and that we thought it was going to be okay, but they really picked on the 30 seconds or the or whatever the 3 minutes that we had about Cultural Revolution, that
Really?
yeah, that talked about the parents' background, and they pushed us quite a bit on that. So we had to really kind of struggle a little bit.
Did you have
Um,
to re-edit the film and remove some elements, or
we made changes.
Mhm.
It was very hard
Chinese
because
version?
I'm sorry.
A Chinese version?
Well, this ended up being the final version.
Okay.
For us, the struggle was always that we wanted this film to be seen by the Chinese audience. That was a priority. But at the same time, as documentary filmmakers, there were boundaries that we didn't want to cross, and we were always flirting on that line, and it was quite stressful.
Yeah.
I think what we had decided was that if they asked us to cut out the story, we would not go through the process of having a Chinese release, but they ended up asking us to remove some images, which after much discussion and hair pulling, we decided to try some other ideas, and we actually felt like it ended up working better because it instead of being literal, which we were
Mhm.
before, like we
Mhm.
were literally showing the images of cultural revolution, um, now we use these images that captures the emotion of it, and I think it actually ended up working better. It's almost like, you always hear stories about that the that whole generation of Chinese directors when they were making fiction films where
Mhm.
they were asked to not do certain things, so they implied, and it actually became more artistic. So
Yeah.
we'd like to think that that's what we ended up doing. So
Well, I didn't think that something was missing. The good thing is the audience doesn't know what they are missing. So, when you cut some things out, we don't know what it was you were cutting out, if we were missing anything. And it did seem now like it was memories, and we were peeking into the memory of what it was that they were doing, what kind of theater they were doing. So I think that worked really well, more like a vision and a dream of
I
something.
think stylistically it works well with what's already in the film. I think that it fits
Yeah.
with the language of the film.
I think we are moving towards the end of the session, but I wanted just to say, I hope the audience really wants to come and watch your film, and you will not regret it. It's a huge story, even though it's going on in China, and a country we might not know so many people from, and we don't know really the Chinese culture. This is really a beautiful way of allowing us in to understand the depth of the culture, and by using a theme of father son, there's so much we can relate to. And the son is such a modern guy that in many ways we feel connected to him, um, for everything he does. And the play is just the tool for actually understanding his father and their relationship, and grasping the sense of his father, and wanting his father to stay alive. And I thought that was just really beautiful, and I hope people will watch it because there's a lot to learn from this film. Thank you, Leo, and so thank you so much to your fellow co-director Yang. I see actually that there is a questions coming now. Just before we're closing, isn't it always like that? There's a nice quote here. Thank you for your beautiful film, Leo. It really touched me. Congratulations to you and your entire team, and greetings from Berlin. And there is a note as well from Robin. I've seen the film. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. So it's, at least I think people have seen the film and followed this Q&A. And I'm sure if they want to know more, you also have your film out on Facebook, and there's ways to communicate with you on social media. and you can watch the film on Amazon and on a couple of other streaming platforms. Isn't that
Yeah,
right?
if folks want to follow us, all of our social media handle is Time Machine Film. And also our website is timemachinefilm.com.
Thank you. And just the last question. So, how is Malion doing now? Is he in China and is he doing art, or where is he?
He's in China. He's doing art, although he's spending a lot of time with his daughter. It's very
Good.
funny because in his old social media feed, it's always, his photography, his sculpture, whatever. But now it's like
Daughter,
baby,
daughter.
baby, baby, daughter, 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 daughter.
Isn't that
Yeah,
just so beautiful life is, You can be this big artist, but at the end of the day, you really only worry about your family relations.
and yeah, I think he's very happy with his family, and then we've seen some beautiful videos and images, that he's shared with us. So we're very happy for him.
Thank you so much, Leo, and I wish you good luck with the film, and I hope you get nominated, and I will follow the film and follow you on the journey. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you so much for everything, Sigrid. All right, take care.
Bye bye. You too. Bye bye.